Yeah. Good luck to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, can you hear me? This is the March 26th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, and what we'll do is start with the additions and deletions to the agenda. I mean, can we have a motion to approve what was before us in the agenda?
So moved.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carries. We have the minutes of last month's February 26th, 2019 meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition, motion carries. Okay, our first appeal, and really it's we had this appeal last meeting that we had, but we're going to be looking at it again, and
Possibly.
What we basically have to do is because of the rules of the Zoning Board of Appeals, we have to the board has to approve going forward this time with the appeal. With that said, I want Brian to come up and give us an overview again of the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, so this one should look a little bit familiar to everybody. So this is the property at 25448 East River Road. They are requesting a dimensional variance. Property's on the west side of East River, south of Bellevue. It is this home here in the aerial photo. Site and adjacent properties are zoned R1A. The variance request, possibly before you this evening, is to expand a non-conforming residence. Pertinent sections of the ordinance include 18.6 and 23.4, which I'll discuss more momentarily. So let me start with the site plan. So this is a revised site plan that is presented to you. The three areas of addition are highlighted in this magenta type color. So we have a covered but unenclosed porch on the street front. We have the attached garage towards the rear. And then we have the cantilevered element on the south side, which has been modified from the request presented last month. So the actual structure has been pulled back a full foot, and the overhang has been pulled back as well. We do have elevation views of each side. So the left side of the screen is the front half of the south side. That makes sense. So this is the front of the residence moving back, and then this, if you can follow my cursor, this guy here is, of course, this is the cantilevered element on the south side in elevation view. On the right side of the screen is a modified drawing. So this is what the side view of that cantilevered element looked like on the left side, was what was presented last month. The applicant has made the modifications that are on the right side. So this new proposal entails a 1 foot cantilevered element with 12-inch of roof overhang, both of which comply with current dimensional standards. The other elevations, so on the left side of the screen, this is the sort of rear half of the house, if you will. The upper portion is the north-facing side. The lower portion is the south-facing side. And then on the right side of the screen, we have the front elevation, and you can see highlighted in yellow here, that is the proposed extent of that cantilevered element. And then on the sort of floor plan view, this is the covered but unenclosed porch, which is also present immediately above. So the first item we need to consider tonight is from your zoning ordinance, section 23.4H. I've put the verbatim paragraph in my review letter. In essence, what it says is that an applicant who is denied a variance request cannot resubmit within 1 year unless they can present that there's been a change of conditions that the board determines to be valid for your consideration of a revised request. So the first thing that we will look for you tonight is to determine whether or not the change in condition that has been proposed, as the applicant is claiming, whether or not you deem that to be valid to allow consideration of the new variance request. So I'm going to continue through the rest of my presentation, but that's going to be, when I get done, we'll want to go back to that, and that's going to be essentially your determination to make. We would like that to be in the form of a formal action by the board. So if you feel the change in condition is valid to allow consideration of the new request, then a motion.
We'll make a motion
Correct.
for
If you do not,
that,
yes,
and then if that passes, we would go on with the
then we
appeal.
would proceed with the variance request. If it does not, then we would end the discussion on this particular case. Does that make sense to everybody?
Question,
Of
so
course.
how many times can someone go through this process theoretically then? 2, 3, 4 times? Do they keep changing?
There is no limit in ordinance. It is simply, at some point in time, I don't think people are going to beat their heads against the wall by making minute tweaks. But I do think we really haven't had to use this clause in the ordinance frequently. We were talking earlier, maybe one time in the last, 10 years or so. And we haven't seen people try to abuse it, but ultimately, that would be a decision for the board to make. It's not a decision of administration or staff or the consulting team. So,
Brian, when they have a second hearing here, do they have to pay the fees?
yes, this has been treated essentially as a
This is a
request.
new appeal.
Full public hearing notice
If we
was
agree to
conducted.
it, it's a new appeal, and they have to pay the.
That's correct. Yes, that's all part of the process.
Brian, is there any further definition or explanation of the change? Minor, major?
Nope.
That's up to us to decide, or?
That's correct. Yeah, the key word in the paragraph is noted in my letter several times and highlighted in this presentation is valid. So the board finds it to be valid to allow your consideration. So I'll get into the change in maybe a little bit more detail, and then so maybe I just got a couple more slides, so I'll finish and then we'll turn it back over to you all. That's for you all to decide. So the other pertinent section, 18.6A, which relates to the expansion of nonconforming buildings. So there's a test that can be met to allow administrative approval. In this case, the test was not fully met, therefore the applicant needed to appear before ZBA. So at this time, the revised request would require only one variance. So that would be the variance from 18.6A as opposed to last time when they needed 2 variances. So
What is that variance?
allow the expansion of a non-conforming residence. So right side, 23.5B, these are the standards upon which you're to make your decision. Of note, obviously, the idea of practical difficulty, the test for substantial justice, the demonstration of an extraordinary or a unique condition or circumstance being of utmost importance. So all that being said, so we were here last month. Applicant presented a case for 2 variances, one to expand a nonconforming residence and a second for a side yard setback encroachment. If you'll recall, both the cantilevered element as well as the roof overhang were beyond the limits of the ordinance. That's where the second variance came from. As I mentioned earlier, the ordinance prohibits resubmission for 1 year unless a change in conditions related to the reason for denial is presented. That's found in section 23.4H. This particular instance, the revised plans do bring the south side addition into compliance with your ordinance, thereby eliminating one of the previously sought variances. In the applicant's eye, they believe that this change warrants consideration of this new application. As I mentioned earlier, it is your decision to make. So it will be up to the ZBA to determine that the change of condition is valid before proceeding with consideration of the actual variance request. If we do, as I mentioned earlier, the proposed additions do comply with the ordinance. However, there is no expansion of this building that can be allowed without a variance. Internal modifications, yes, to a degree. External expansion, because of the extent of its nonconformity, they can't do anything expansion-wise, if that makes sense, without a variance. So they need at least one variance to expand this residence at all. Generally speaking, most property owners in this community have the ability to construct compliant additions to their homes. In this case, this applicant does not. The property itself, as we discussed last month and as is noted in my letter, is quite narrow. It's just under 50 feet of lot width towards the front. This is an 80-foot minimum district. The narrow lot width, in my opinion, is an extraordinary circumstance. That circumstance was not created by the applicant. They have purchased and inherited the condition of the property. And then the closing point is one that we often put forth, and that's simply, if you do consider granting the variance, mind you, if you consider hearing the variance first, and then you consider granting the variance, you do have the ability to attach conditions that you feel are necessary to uphold the intent of the ordinance or to protect neighboring or nearby property owners from any potential impacts. So, Mr. Chair, that's the end of my presentation at this point. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Part of my concern is that one of the two no votes is not here tonight, and it says, yeah, you can rehear it if there's a valid change, and it pertains to the reason that it was denied. I don't know what the other no vote, who's not here, what does he consider? What did he vote no for? It may not have been that bump out, I don't know.
I think my response to that, in all honesty, Mr. Carnego, would be it's up to each of you individually to decide whether you believe this change in condition is valid. I would refer to another.
We have the change in front of us.
Correct.
And whether that is a valid change is what we have to decide. And in fact, why we don't need the people that were here last time is because it is, if we're going to hear it, it is a new.
Correct. A decision was rendered.
Right.
It was not an issue of conflict of interest where an alternate sat in. It was not an issue of tabling where we needed the same
People here.
Get to that point, being treated as a new public hearing.
What I'm saying, I do not know, what if you voted against it because of the bump out or not? And if it wasn't because of the bump out, then there wasn't a change made that would have changed the reason that you voted.
Again, all I can say, it is up to the board that is here to make this decision. We were short members last month, too.
And I don't know unless I know why he voted against it. I don't know if it's valid about what he voted against it or not.
That's your decision to make, Mr. Carnego.
Maybe somebody here that was
And
here.
that's your decision to make. Nobody else can make that for you.
John, are you saying that you can't vote because you do not know what the other nay vote was at the last meeting?
Whether it was pertinent to the bump out or not. Maybe he voted against it because of the other variants. I don't know.
Mr.
Well,
Chair,
there was in the minutes that we had in February. I think there was an indication of what the nays were about.
Okay,
Right.
Basically, I think the nay was about the condition was not. They said it was not self-imposed, but I think the naysayer said it was self-imposed. I think that was basically the reason that was. And Chuck, can you?
I can
Yeah,
What I stated was because I do not think in the February meeting that the applicant met the criteria in the code because it was not it was a circumstance that, not that they intentionally brought on themselves, but that they relied upon an inadequate. It was my no vote in the February meeting was that the applicant did not meet the criteria in the code for the variance because they, not intentionally, but this was brought upon by themselves for submitting a drawing which was not accurate instead of a survey until they obtained a survey and they found out that they needed the variance. So I didn't feel that they met the criteria.
yeah, and I think that sums it up pretty well. What, John, is that?
Okay, so is the
Because
change
really, the
valid
discussion
again?
that we're doing right now is really, should be during our discussion about whether we proceed or not.
That's what we're doing.
John,
Not right now, we're not, no.
Oh,
I mean,
wait
unless
then.
we can, unless we
I thought
can.
that's what this was.
John, maybe, I don't know if this will clear it up, but it doesn't matter whether it was yes or no. That's not what we're voting on. And what we're voting on is here's a change to what we had before. And just looking at the change, do you consider that a valid change? Yeah.
In order to consider it a valid change, two people have voted against it because one of them's
Well,
not here and
well,
heard the other.
but the
Valid, it has to be valid. The change has to be valid as to why it was turned down.
and you looking at what the change is, which you have before you, do you think that is a valid change? Well, no, we are to determine whether if it's a change, if it's a valid change, that's what you're basing your vote on as to whether we're going to hear it or
Brian,
not.
can I say, Brian, are you through?
I am, yes.
Okay, thank you. So now we can get, what I'd like to do is now we're doing what we should be doing is getting in the discussion of whether we proceed or not. And so let's continue what we're talking about here because we have John questioning whether he knows enough about what's going on. And
The only reason I say that is because when Brian was talking, is a change valid is the reason it was turned down, is the way I interpret it. Valid change. I don't know why it was turned down. He told us why he did, but
and my personal opinion was it was, I mean,
in
his,
other words, Jim, if given the change that was made, would he still vote no? That's what I thought valid meant.
No, I don't believe that's what it is. But go ahead.
that's the key, what you think now.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is discuss it and then get a motion either for or against so we can proceed. We can discuss till the
Jim,
cows
you're-
come home, but
you're
we
trying
have to proceed on this.
Trying to turn this around just to say it's a valid change. Yeah,
No, I.
valid change.
So team, maybe we should go in, maybe we should go one by one, because I know I wasn't here last time, and, you know, who knows if I would have said yes or no to it. But I tried to do my due diligence. I watched that entire thing today on TV. So I watched it from record to see how everybody interacted and different thoughts. I went to the site so I could see it personally to see what it looks like now compared to what it's going to be changed to, and, you know, help me kind of frame, is it valid, not valid? That's what I've been trying to do for my due diligence today to make sure I was best prepared for this meeting. So for me, I find it irrelevant whether or not someone who voted yes or no last time will vote today yes or no for, is it valid, to get it onto a discussion point for us then to make a decision for a yes or no vote. I think we have to take our own internal judgment and go one by one of, do we feel this has merit to make it onto this agenda for an action item or not? And I don't know, Mr. Chair, how you want to work that discussion or go one by one or what, but.
Well, you know, I think that that's a good idea. I think we should start by indicating each person's feelings about whether this change rises to that event where we can consider it as a valid appeal again. So I think we should, each one of us should kind of have a short presentation on what their concerns are on this. Then we'll get the motion, and then we'll carry on, okay? So Linda, you wanna start?
Yes, I'll start. I believe it's a valid change, and a new hearing should happen tonight for a number of reasons, and I'm trying to keep my emotion out of it. This is a project that has already begun. It's already been built to the 24-inch cantilevered bump out. The owners are willing to deconstruct it and pull it back a foot so to accommodate the bathroom for their daughter. I think it's more than valid, more than justified that we hear and vote again on a new variance.
Thank you. Chuck?
Change in the applicant is a valid change to make it to the discussion tonight.
Okay.
Was I didn't know why the people voted against it. If Chuck feels it's
Oh.
valid, I feel it's
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was there, by the way, I was there today and watched talked to Tim for quite a while. I watched the video too. That had nothing to do with what I was saying.
Yeah,
I just
Steve.
feel ill at ease that one of the no votes is not here.
Okay. Steve.
So yes, as I previously stated, I tried to frame up the conversation for tonight the best I could with doing as much research on my own and watching the tape from last time. So I do believe going from 2 variances to 1 variance is a valid change in how I interpret the definition for valid.
Two things. First, I'd like to just ask our attorney if he has anything to add to help with the situation.
Well, one thing to remember is that the particular reason an individual member may or may not have had in voting for or against something is completely irrelevant at this point. You have a set of minutes as to the action taken by the board, and what you're deciding as a board is whether or not there's new evidence or proof of a change condition based on the denial that was previously presented in the minutes. What somebody's personal opinion, why or not, you go by the minutes that are there, and then this board can make a determination whether or not the request that's being made is significant enough to show that there is either new evidence or proof of change conditions that you can move forward. Doesn't matter who was here previously, who was here now. If you had a quorum then and you have a quorum now, you're ready to proceed.
Thanks, Tom. I hope that helps the board. My personal opinion is actually it's been said by a couple of people. One, I look at it as one variance has been done away with. I find that to make it valid. And the change itself from the size that it was to what they're going to, I find that to be material, a material enough change that I'd also say that it's valid. So I feel that we could go ahead with it.
Okay, thanks. Personally, I think going from 2 variances to 1 variance is in my mind is justification to go ahead with the appeal. So given that, let's see if we can get a motion for this appeal. Do we have a motion?
I will start us off, and then we can have discussion of how you want to modify it. So I'd like to make a motion for appeal number 19-001 that the applicant has provided a substantial, whatever the new one? 002, that the applicant has provided a valid reason to move forward with will this still be an appeal?
A valid change.
With a valid change, so we can hear appeal number 19-002.
Did you get that, Lori? Okay. Support?
Support for the motion. Now, everybody in favor? Aye.
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 Nays? Hearing no nays, the motion carries, so we can proceed with the appeal. Thank you. Okay, Brian.
I've already
let's-
gone through everything I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yeah, what I want to do is bring the applicants back up and have whoever's going to make the presentation for the applicant, give your name and address and the relationship that you have to the applicant.
You hear me okay, Jim? Yep. Okay. So I'm the homeowner, Tim Connor. It's 25448 East River Road. So as you guys mentioned, we've tried to eliminate that other variance. That's what we've done here.
Speak louder, please.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come up. I don't know what it is with this microphone, if they can turn that up in the back. So then what we did on the resubmittal is we put a 2-page Word doc together of what the situation was, what we did, and then it really comes down to the variance that Brian pointed out on it's a non-conforming property lot, non-conforming home, so we would need to come before you for the variance. So I don't know if you have any questions on the Word document that we submitted. It was just a 2-page short letter. I know, I think John and Steve, you guys read through it. I don't know if you have any other questions. It's the garage in the back, the new garage, and then the front, that covered part of the front door there.
So basically, what we see on the drawing in front of us on the monitor here is what's gonna be constructed. You're going from 38 inches to 24.
12 inches, right, Tim? We're coming in 24 to 12, yeah.
Well, 24 to 12, but then 24 to 12. Excuse me.
Yep. That's correct.
Then you got the 12-inch. You got the eaves, and then you got the overhang. That was
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and those are noted in that Word document as well.
allowed that distance based on the ordinance, the language of the ordinance, right?
That's correct. And then we gave it to Brian ahead of time before we submitted, so he could double check us on the math. And is that correct there, Brian? You got that?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just as a reminder, so section 19.6 of the zoning ordinance does allow architectural features, including overhanging eaves, to encroach up to 2 inches for 1 foot of setback provided. So this new building, the new cantilevered element is at 6 foot at its near point off the property line. The eaves encroachment is 12 inches, thus being 2 inches per 1 foot. So it does meet section 19.6.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Brian. Do you have anything else?
No, that was it. That was it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else in the audience want to speak to the appeal? Yes, come up, name and address.
Couple things regarding the elevation. So this is the first I've seen of a south elevation. It's previously been missing in the construction documents. It conveniently leaves out a few different areas that are important. Further to the left in this picture, which would be west, it leaves out the door wall that they put on this side, which opens up into our bushes and our driveway. It also leaves out the solar panels that they installed already. So just noting what it's leaving out. On the right side of this picture, it cuts off the front of the house. So I'd like to show you, I'm not sure if on this document, Cam, will it show a picture on my phone?
But the solar panels are not part of our hearing.
Understood. I just wanted to make note of what is missing on this elevation.
Okay, can I take the mic real quick?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just
Yes, Brian.
we'll try to get his photos to work, but So this is the partial, that was all chopped up. So I showed you earlier a bunch of partial elevations. So this is this rear half of the house from both the south view and the north view, plus the front view, plus the overhead view with the porch and the front slider. So they are in here. They were provided by the petitioner with the second submittal. So I wanted to make sure you saw those. Let's try to get this guy to work. See if
zoom in. Okay. So east is to the right in this picture. So the front of the house is to the right. We're looking at the side, the south side of the house. Basically, you can see down here, that's the old house, the old wood. This front part is all new construction, including this roof. So you can see the roof line where the new roof starts, the new construction. This new addition and this roof line is actually because this existing wall is 5.8 feet from, it's already a non-conforming wall. So that new roof is actually into the 6-foot setback. So when they show the front addition as just being a small front porch, that's actually inaccurate. It's the whole front of the house. So if we went back to the other document that had the top view, and it just shows the 3 areas, that the back garage, the side bump out, and the front porch, that small front porch, it's more than that. It's the whole length of the front of the house, as you can see in this picture. And actually, this south side of that new construction is within 6 foot. So I just want to, the actual construction documents leave out that information.
Question, I'm sorry, either for Mr. Chair, for you or for Brian, is this a relevant scope of this discussion for this appeal or not? I'm just trying to understand if I should be thinking of these things for the appeal that's before us. Is there something that's breaking an ordinance or needs a variance?
We've
A lot of
reviewed the
information
plan.
being provided here that I don't know if it is relevant to the scope of today's discussion.
We've reviewed the plans that were provided. That's all we can do. So I don't know what else we could be asked to do, either myself or
Yeah,
staff.
Brian, unless
That was
it's
part of the plan.
yeah, Brian, unless it's notified as noted as a variance, then we really, it's not our purview to look at it.
Yeah, and I don't want it to come across disrespectful to you. I just need to know, as we frame up the discussion here for when we make a vote, is this relevant to the vote that we're about to have or not? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, the reason I would say it's relevant is it's to expand this non-conforming structure in 3 areas, and this is one of the 3 areas, but it's inaccurately represented in the documentation, so I just wanted to give the accurate picture that, and actually that roof line and that new wall that I showed you would need a variance of 19.6, the side yard setback, just like the side bump out, which is, that's actually a different one, but anyhow, the variance that we're talking tonight is regarding 18.6, the expansion of a non-conforming structure in those 3 areas, the front, the back garage, and the side bump out. So this is just more information regarding one of those 3 areas. The other thing I wanted to say is regarding the board's decision just to have this be valid at all in tonight's meeting. So this is the exact same appeal as last month of the expansion of the same 3 areas of the same property. In regards to, there was some question as to why there were the no votes. It was both Mr. Wojno and Mr. Bailey did not mention the side bump out at all in their reasoning that they gave. And while I don't have the official report, it is a public document that you can, or stream that you can view online. And from their quotes, basically it was just that they created these issues on their own erroneous attempt to build. And Gary mentioned, Mr. Bailey mentioned, the survey, the very ordinary circumstance of getting a survey. The fact that they didn't do that, he said, was beyond his comprehension. So what I would say is, as far as their reasoning behind it and whether this is valid, I mean, it's up, it's up for you to decide whether it's valid or not. I would just say it actually doesn't change the fact that they didn't follow the building codes and zoning ordinances when doing this construction, regardless of if that bump out is now in compliance. So, besides that, I would just ask that, once again, like last week, that, these zoning ordinances do exist for a reason. They're to protect people, who follow the rules and who live in their homes here on Groseal. And, this aggressive building we find to be illegal, and we would ask that you do not allow them to expand their lot. And we would remind you that you actually already rendered a decision regarding this exact thing last month. And the fact that you're discussing again, I view it as illegal, but I guess that will remain to be seen in the future.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak to the issue? Name and address.
Can you hear me? No?
You want to speak into the microphone, please?
Somebody raise this thing up for me. Is this as high as it goes? I'm not tall, but I'm going to have to lean into it. My back kills me if I do that. Oh, cool. Now can you hear me? All right. Thank you. My name is Dale Watkins. My wife, Pat, and I live at 25440 East River Road. We're the house to the north, the big gray thing that's been under perpetual renovation for the last 2 years, I believe. I've got a couple of things that I'd like to discuss. I sent a letter. I hope you all got that. There's a couple of very minor points, and I don't really want to belabor them, but I mentioned an abstract. This is the abstract from 1796 to 1971. Toward the back here that I've earmarked is 1953, the easement that was granted by Mr. Marish Thompson to the Michigan Silica Company regarding an easement. And that easement was granted because the house was already so wide that they couldn't get a driveway wide enough without encroaching on the property that my wife and I now live in. So, just to be clear, the seller of the house next door to us, Ann Zaragoza, never mentioned an easement to me, never gave me any documents of any type. So I just want to clear up what was written in Mr. Connor's letter that was a bit confusing to me. The other comment that I'd like to make, and I also put in the letter, is that in August, when their brick mason started to work on the garage conversion, he came over to me and he said, I don't have any water to do any of the work. Can we use water from your house? And also, can we go ahead and provide water to the workers because they don't have any water to drink? And I said, sure, no problem. Go ahead and take what you need. And he also mentioned to me, he said, do you know the scope of the construction here? And I said, no, haven't seen any plans. Nobody said anything. Township didn't send out any letters about a board meeting to discuss the construction. And he said, well, you might want to go down to the township and take a look. So I did, and I talked to Tony Gray, and he showed me the plans, and he said, excuse me, he said, what they're doing is fine. It's within the building standards. It's within the square footage based on the size of the lot and the size of the overall finished building. And I said, okay, that's fine, because I don't know anything about any of this stuff. This is all new to me. But he also used as a measure, or including in the measure, the riparian lot on the other side of the road, of East River Road. And I don't know how that's allowable. It may not change the calculations, but that's a process that you all need to look into to make sure that they're actually measuring things correctly, because in any other environment, you wouldn't be able to use a lot across the street from your main lot to claim as square footage for your calculations. And finally, the last thing that I want to bring up is the photograph that I included as the last page. I assume that a lot of people have made site visits. I don't know if you all have or not. I don't know what your site visit consisted of. Before the first meeting in February, it's pretty cold. I don't know if you made a slow drive-by, whether you pulled into the driveway, whether you got out of your vehicle and walked the lot. I don't know the extent of your site visit. If you had come down the north side of the lot, you would probably see or remember seeing this view here. The north elevation that was just shown only includes the new construction, the new garage and the garage conversion. It doesn't show the full extent of the structure running east to west on the north side of the property. If the request for a variance had been set in place prior to construction, then the plans would have been reviewed prior to any work being done. Site visit would have been done by all the members of the board. Questions could have been asked of the owners of the lot. Any plans needing modification that could have been done before construction commenced. But we don't have that situation because, as was stated earlier, they went ahead and built without the required variances. So if you look at the property, you can see the old original Dutch colonial house, and that original area that is covered by the roof line, excluding the one-story extension to the west, that's where the easement was granted, only there.
Point with your finger so I follow the exact same part that you are. Thank you.
That's the area covered by the 1953 easement. That area there, that breezeway and hallway, and the garage that has undergone conversion on the exterior all represent the 1993 construction expansion. That was the site plan that was used that was inaccurate, that was discussed at length last month. Because this one-story addition to the west occurred along the line of the original house, the driveway had to be re-poured. So there is a second encroachment that extends 51 feet from approximately the end of the original roof line of the Dutch colonial cottage, almost halfway to the garage. So that's an addition of area of encroachment on our property. I bring all this up because I just wanted to show the overall picture of the site of the construction. If you look along the remaining driveway that hasn't been pulled up, about 2 feet of that driveway is actually on my property. So from my perspective, this is from my backyard, I have no privacy. I have what is essentially two structures. The original cottage with the 1993 expansion and a separate studio apartment that's being constructed with an attached garage. If you'll bear with me for a minute. You'll see here an earlier constructed two-car garage. So there's two-car garages on the property. So how does all this have any bearing tonight? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm just a retired pathologist. Spent 34 years in the Navy doing what I was told to do, went where I was told to go. My wife followed me dutifully for those 34 years. Her dad lives here, has lived here for most of his life. He's 90 years old. He needs help. She wanted to come home. So I brought her home. And I brought her home to this mess. I am concerned that at some point in the future, and if you look at the interior plans of the conversion of the garage, it is almost a complete apartment, except the area of the breezeway and the hallway where the handicapped access bathroom is being constructed. If we were to try to sell our house, which we don't want to because we didn't build it, or we didn't restore it to flip it, we love the place. This is a very beautiful community. We saved for many, many years to have enough money to come up here. It's very expensive. Many, many times we came up and said, there's no way we can afford to live here. But we saved our money. We got here. I am concerned, my wife and I are both concerned, that through no fault of the Connors or Mr. Grosclaws, they have set up a potential that this studio apartment, when this house changes hands, it may take 30 years. I don't know. We may be long gone. I'll probably be long gone before that happens. But someone could purchase it and rent out that back space, that back studio apartment. So all I'm asking here in a nutshell is, how do we deal with that in the future? A variance denial won't stop that, because you basically would have an illegal additional living quarters. Somebody could buy it and rent it out. I'm not saying that's what the Connors are going to do. Obviously, that's not their intent. But it's an unforeseen consequence. I don't know where to go to deal with that. And you gentlemen and lady can't answer that either. This is a mess. And I don't know how to deal with it. Probably if the survey had been done, they could have gone for variance and either gotten it or not gotten it. But if we wait a year, say this was denied and we weren't here talking about this, a year from now, they could come back and ask for the same variance. If we were to fight it in circuit court and get it overturned, they could go to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals could overturn the circuit court's ruling. But, and I'm not doing a very good job of describing this, and I apologize. My concern is that you're going to have a zone, an R1A zone, with one of the lots, the smallest lot along East River Road between Bellevue and where East River Road turns toward Manchester and heads south again. The smallest lot in that neighborhood is going to be a rental property. That's my concern. And that's why I was so concerned to begin with. I just couldn't explain it last month, and I probably hadn't done a very good job now. The Connors are great people. I have nothing against them. But we put a lot of money into our place, and we're not done yet. And I'm afraid we'll never get anywhere near our investment back, because people will look at that and say, that's a rental unit. We can explain to them, no, it isn't. They said, well, it could be. And I've had realtors tell me that. So I don't have any answers. It's just a plea for consideration, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that wants to address the Can you speak to the in the loudspeaker, please? In the speaker?
To the mic.
The mic?
Yes, thank you.
This is what I submitted to the township showing the land area. And you can see lot area does not include 5,343 square feet east of East River Road. So that wasn't included, just for your information. Secondly, this space for Emma that is claimed to be a potential apartment someday does not have
The little niche.
Yes, you can see that that is common surface. That is shown at the So I just underlined it.
Okay, do we have any, body else that,
Was that mic on? Okay, thank you.
thanks. We need that technical help here. Okay, are there any other people that want to address this appeal? Okay, what I'd like to do now is just have a discussion amongst the board members to see if we can come up with a motion to either approve or deny the appeal. So, does anybody have any questions that we can entertain?
Just, could I, Mr. Chairman, could I just ask, probably not a good question, but this is a non-conforming structure, not permitted to expand a non-conforming structure. So there was talk, when Scott was talking, there was talk of 2 variances now, or when Tim was talking, one's been eliminated. I think that side is still bumped out, isn't it? Only a foot now. Isn't that an expansion of a non-conforming structure, or?
That's what the variance being sought is, to expand a non-conforming residence. Correct. Well, as presented, yes.
John?
Each of the
There was only
additions
one-
proposed.
There was only one variance in the beginning, it's to expand a non-conforming structure?
No. The south side addition also needed a variance, but because it encroached into the setback and encroached beyond the limits of cantilevered elements and roof overhangs. That was the second variance. They've eliminated that variance. They just need the one. The south side addition, the front porch addition, the garage addition at the rear, per the plans reviewed, all comply with current dimensional standards.
If, in other words, if it weren't for the fact that it's on a non-conforming lot, these would all be okay.
Well, it's the residence itself, the building itself being non-conforming.
Right.
You just can't expand it.
Correct.
I just thought that, that bump out was an expansion.
Yeah, the new appeal would be okay. The bump out on the prior appeal wasn't, I mean, it encroached on the 6-foot setback. But that was
Isn't
corrected.
that
That was,
bump out now, even though it's down to 1 foot, an expansion of a non-conforming structure? That's what I'm confused about.
Yes.
It's part of the variance, it's not eliminated, the variance.
But it doesn't necessitate its own dimensional
No,
variance.
no, I
It no
understand.
longer
I understand.
encroaches.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
anybody else have any questions? Linda?
Say, reading some of Brian's notes.
You want to in the mic?
Reading some of Brian's notes, and I think this should be considered, is that most residents, I'm going to read this, have the ability to expand their residences where dimensional standards are met. As such, we are of the opinion that granting the variance requested is in keeping with substantial justice. I think, that the applicants have been willing to adjust their plans to meet the ordinances. Granting it would be substantial justice. And he goes on to say that as such, granting of a request will allow the owner to do what most others are generally allowed to do: construct compliant additions to their residence. Compliant additions to their residence.
Thank you. Any other discussions here? Hearing none, can we entertain a motion? Will somebody put forth a motion that we can consider?
I'll try. I would like to make a motion to approve the variance for 25448 East River, appeal number 19-002. What else do I need to say? Brian?
We need to reference the review standards, demonstration of practical difficulty, unique circumstance, substantial justice, etc. The review standards are found in section 23.5B. Please.
Yeah.
Yes. We need a rationale for the motion.
The question I have is an addendum to the motion which addresses whether the addition can be converted into an apartment or not. Is that within the purview of this, where we put an addendum onto the motion, which would deny that ever happening?
For starters, Mr. Chair, I think the board member, I think we need to finish the motion. I don't know if she was done, and then I think we need support, and then we can discuss that matter.
It's premature. Your question's premature.
Brian, I don't think what needs to be in addition to what she said?
There needs to be a basis for the motion
Linda,
to
he's
approve.
telling you what. You need her to say it?
Okay, adding to the motion. Number one, the practical difficulties, the compliance with the strict letter of the regulations governing the area, setbacks, frontage, bulk, density, and other dimensional provisions would create practical difficulties and unreasonably prevent the use of the property for a permitted purpose, or would render conformity with such restrictions unnecessarily burdensome. The showing of mere inconvenience is insufficient to justify a variance. Substantial justice, granting of a request variance or appeal, would do substantial justice to the applicant as well as to the other property owners in the district. Or as an alternative, granting of a lesser variance that variance then requested would give substantial relief to the owner of the property involved and be more consistent with justice to other property owners. Number three, public safety and welfare. The requested variance or appeal can be granted in such fashion that the spirit of the ordinance will be observed and public safety and welfare secured.
You don't have to read them all. They don't all have to be in there. It's the ones that you're
Well,
But I
probably,
see-
Brian, you could work it up a little bit. I'd like to support the spirit of her motion.
Basically,
Here's what I would like for discussion purposes. We need to make reference to the opinion that the standards of section 23.5B are met and that there is demonstration of a practical difficulty.
And I support the motion then.
okay, Lori, do you have that down? Okay. With that motion, do we have a motion support for that motion?
I supported it twice.
John supported it.
Support for the motion?
Yes, John supported it.
With that, can we have a vote? All in favor?
Did
We
you want to?
already had the discussion or not? Okay,
You had a question about the accessory.
yeah.
dwelling.
No, my question was, does that belong on this on this motion?
It would be in violation of the ordinance to establish a secondary or accessory or second dwelling. This is a single-family district, so I don't know that you
So you've answered my question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
not part of the proposal, and it would, if they wished to convert it, it would be in direct violation of the ordinance.
Just not allowed, so.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think-
So that's what I wanted to get. So because we had the person up here which he had a question as to what happens 100 years from now, and I'm saying we don't know.
With our
But
same ordinances that we have.
If they stay as they are, then it's not allowed, right? Okay, all right. Okay, so any other discussions on the motion? The support. We have support from John. Okay, so all in favor?
Yes?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed?
Have motion, the ayes carry, so the appeal is approved. Thank you. Okay, let's go on now. We have appeal number 19-003. It's from Mr. Mark Mills of 23509 West River, has requested a public hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals to install solar panels that exceeds the height requirements on lot number 18 and 19 of Louis D. Rucker's subdivision as recorded in Wayne County Records, Township of Grosse Ile, County of Wayne, Michigan. Representative, Power Home Solars, 500 Stevenson Highway, Troy, Michigan, 48083. Is that who you are?
No, sir, I'm the homeowner. My name is Mark Mills, yes.
You're Mr. Mills?
My representative from Power Home Solar, Mark DiVirgilio, he just stepped out to use the restroom just before this last.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to have, before you can make your presentation to us, we're going to have Brian come up here and give us an overview of
Yes,
the
sir.
project, then you can give us your input. Thank you.
Thanks again, Mr. Chair. Give me 1 second. Here we go. All right, the case before you is for the property at 23509 West River Road. As the chairman noted, this is another request for dimensional variance. This is near the intersection of West River Road and Riverview Court. You can see the little side street here on the screen. This is the subject site. The property adjacent, fronting West River, zoned R1A. The variance request before you is regarding the installation of 2 freestanding solar panel structures in the rear yard of the property that are in excess of the height limitation in the ordinance. Pertinent section is 19.23B, which regulates freestanding solar equipment.
Brian, before you go on, if you could go back to the last slide, and can you just kind of show the panel whereabouts they would be?
So they're the
house.
I'm going to flip back and forth, try not to make you guys dizzy. So this is the site plan. So if you look in relation to the house, there's 2 panels, roughly 30 to 35 feet, sort of immediately behind the residence. So, somewhere back in here, if that helps. So that's looking at the site plan. These are the panels as depicted. In relation to the house, you can see all the setbacks provided. You can see the relation in terms of the yard based on the building placement. And then these are a couple of different elevation views. So this would be a front-on view on the left side. And then this is the critical element here, which I highlighted to assist my review process and realized then that I kind of snuffed it out on the scan. So I apologize for that. But what I can tell you is that dimension is 9 foot 5 inches. So I know we can't read it because of my highlight, but so from grade to top of structure is 9 foot 5 inches as proposed for both freestanding solar panel structures. As I mentioned earlier, 19.23B outlines the regulations for freestanding solar panels. Of note is paragraph 2, that allows them in the rear yard only, requires minimum 6-foot side or rear setbacks, provides for a maximum height of 4 feet, establishes a coverage limitation, requires that transmission lines be underground, and notes that they shall not be visible from adjacent properties and that they shall be screened with landscaping where necessary. The issue here is, as I mentioned, that maximum height. So the ordinance allows for, they're proposing 9 foot 5 inches. This is a dimensional variance, so the same standards of section 23.5B apply to this request, including practical difficulty, substantial justice, and unique circumstances of note. My quick summary, I trust you've read my letter. In short, I personally don't see a practical difficulty that applies in this situation. The property itself is in excess of minimum district standards. It's regular, rectangular in shape. I don't see a unique circumstance or condition that we can hang our hat on for granting of a variance. Anytime we're dealing with a situation without a practical difficulty or unique circumstance, in my opinion, granting of that variance would not be in keeping with the substantial justice or fairness test. Other property owners, we do have a handful of solar panels in this community. For the most part, they've been building mounts, not ground mounts. And this would be the first variance that I recall since solar regulations were adopted. So this is not a situation where we've dealt with similar requests or where there's a unique condition that would warrant consideration of a taller structure. So the applicant did respond to some of the items in their submittal. They did indicate the roof structure wasn't ideal for a roof mount. There is the possibility for a wall mount in your ordinance as well. There's also the opportunity for potentially just a different type of solar panel structure or model altogether. It's been presented as though this particular model cannot be constructed within that height limitation, but again, we've not seen an issue with height of solar panels prior to this case. So as far as the remainder of the items, really isn't generally expected to have any off-site adverse impacts. That being said, still want to reiterate my point that in the absence of an actual practical difficulty with the unique circumstance, we really shouldn't be granting variances. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Short and sweet.
Thanks, Brian. Now, can we have the applicant come up?
Representative, if you want to.
Yeah, are you? Yeah, we can have both of you together and the name.
Side.
Yeah, the name and your address. So
My name
Mills,
is-
we already got your name
Okay,
and
very good.
address, and then for the
My name's Mark DiVirgilio, District Manager at Power Home Solar. I'm here to answer questions.
okay, Mr. Mills.
Well, as we discussed, or as I've discussed with some of the folks over at Power Home Solar, first off, this, I don't know if I can. So the placement of the panels isn't going here anyways. This is an older drawing. What's not depicted on here is a shed that's been approved back on this part of the property right here. Kind of in between where these trees are drawn in here. The panels will be going side by side along this side of the property. We have to get you an updated drawing of that if you need to see it. But here's where they're going to go. They're not going to go anywhere near this part of the area or anywhere near my neighbors to the north. It's going to be off the 6-foot easement, or the 6-foot encroachment, I guess is how you put it, off the county right-of-way in between Riverview Court and my property. There's also, in this particular area here, there are some trees. There's also a few trees up here in front that would block the sun from the panels. It would make the panels kind of, in a sense, ineffective for what I'm trying to do. Even the placement on a roof, when you see, we were talking about the roof mounts, due to the number of panels I'll need to make these effective, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the way that my particular roof is cut up on my house, the panels would not be able to get enough sunlight, even if I cut all the trees down around it. Just because of the way the panels are set up, would have to be set up on the roof, the different pitches. They wouldn't be able to collect enough of the sun's energy, I guess, to produce enough power to be effective. So the proposed should have been right here, and of course the shed should have been drawn in here as well. If I can go flip back, how do I flip back here? I'm sorry. Oh,
And Mr. Chair, if I could, just real quick, while there's a brief
Yes.
interruption. So, one, I mean, the plans submitted are what we reviewed. This is what the applicant submitted.
right,
So
right.
if they're incorrect, then I can't speak to that. Two, I can tell you that because of the nature of this lot with the frontage on Riverview Court, they can't be 6 feet off of the right-of-way line because then it will be in a front yard. They need to be behind the house placement as it relates to Riverview Court in order to be deemed in the rear yard. They're only permitted in a rear yard. So the location that you spoke to would not be allowed by ordinance.
So this is
if
not
you wish to,
considered-
if you would wish to move them to that location, we need to see drawings, and that adds to the variance request.
okay, but just so for clarification for me, right here, this is not my rear yard? Because my yard basically goes from here.
You have a corner lot which has 2 front yards. Your front yard is from West River to the front face of the house and from Riverview Court to the south face of the house.
I guess,
No closer to Riverview Court than your house. They have to essentially be behind your house or east of your house, if you will.
Brian, if I could, we can't tell from this drawing, are there homes on, south of Riverview Court there? Is that what's depicted in those driveways, it appears?
I believe there are 2 homes. I could be.
So those persons were given notice of today's hearing with the drawing with the 2 smaller, or the 2 panels closer to the home, not with any modified or proposed changes, which would put it possibly directly in front of their sight line, but still behind his house.
Right. The notices would have only identified the variance request for the height increase, not for a yard location, because the submittal didn't require it.
So in other words, what we're saying is the drawing that we have is what we're working on. That's what the variance, that's what this hearing is about. And the only thing, that placement was okay, the only thing was the height. If you're changing the location of them, now we have, it's not something we can add here now.
I
You'd
understand.
have to have another variance.
I understand.
And
I didn't
come
submit
back
the actual
again.
drawings. That was done by Power Home Solo. So I assumed, I didn't look at his plans before I got here. So that's why I wanted to know, point that out. If we have to reschedule, are we allowed to do that if we have to? But before we do that, though, I need to clarify one more time. So they can't go over here where the shed area is over here. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, and your front yard is determined by front lot lines to front face of house. So we would need quite frankly, we need a much better site plan. We'll need to see where they are in relation. They cannot be nearer the Riverview Court right-of-way than your house is. If they encroach closer to Riverview Court than your house, then they are in the front yard.
Okay, so you talk, as far as my
So-
house, we're talking right here then?
Right.
Okay, so they have to be, this
That
going back.
line.
Okay.
That line, yes.
All right, I just want to be clear before,
Right.
so they can still go along this area. They can't go any further south than my most southern part of my home.
That's correct. They
Okay.
cannot encroach into the front yard.
I understand. Well, that's, I don't believe that's not gonna be an issue. You send back a little further, that won't be a problem. So I guess my question to the panel here then would be, because of the way this drawing was submitted, do we have to reschedule and have the panels moved into the proper drawing where they're going to go? Or can we proceed now with the idea of the panels going over here, not to come in front of the house on the west or south side of the property?
I mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I mean, the notices were sent for a single variance. The review was conducted for a single variance. I have to be honest with you, I'm not entirely comfortable with a pretty significant change that adds, in my opinion, a pretty major second variance.
And would just be verbal. I mean,
Right, I'll get the plans
What you're
and we can
telling
submit
us,
later.
we need to see.
But-
we need to see exactly what you're doing.
No, I understand. I understand completely. But would that be considered variance? If I have it north of my southern house line, is that considered variance?
You You can keep them in the rear yard. It would not require a second.
Okay, so the only variance at hand then would be the height. Correct. So may we proceed forward on the height, and then I can resubmit a plan of where they're going to go later on? I mean, can we get past the height variance? Because that's really the major issue at this point. Or what's out of compliance with the ordinance at this point?
Yeah,
I am not comfortable voting for a project that is showing me a picture that is not accurate. So if I'm voting on this picture that's here with that location where those things are on this, where it's depicted here.
Right.
I don't know where it will be placed later.
Right. We don't want to piecemeal this.
No, I completely understand.
What we need to see is exactly what you're going to do. The picture that we have, what we have before us, doesn't sound like what you want to do.
No, it's not accurate, and that's why I want to bring that forth now.
And I would rather table this appeal and have you come back with exactly what you're going to do, so we know exactly what's going on. And if there were another variance, that could be.
There won't be another variance. The only variance in question is going to be the height.
You're just going to move
Correct.
it back.
I'm moving back. The only variance is the height. That's the only variance I'm requesting at this point.
so where would you put the solar panels under the new drawing?
Well, can you see? I don't know. Do you guys have screens right in front of you? Okay.
Yeah, we can see
So
your
instead of
cursor.
putting them right here, as they're pictured, they're going to go here, but they will be they'll be in compliance with the ordinance as far as being the setback on the house.
You're moving it east.
I will be moving them east. That's correct. Basically correct, and they'd be going side by side instead of staggered in this fashion, just side by side.
But yeah, you're showing them north and south oriented. The two panels are one.
They're going to be
south.
next to each other.
They'll be next to each other.
They're going to be next to each other.
Correct.
So that's a change too.
Yeah, yeah.
How did we get this drawing to come out anyway? I mean, to even be considered here at the meeting.
Mark, can you answer that?
Yeah.
That was what?
Somebody else's drawing.
Yeah, I didn't submit this drawing, so I.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
I have another question. If the matter's tabled this evening and accurate drawings are resubmitted, do the adjoining homeowners get the updated accurate drawings, or are they left with what they already have for them to go on? Because we, sitting as part of this board, we represent your neighbors that are on Riverview Court. So I'm just wondering, are those
understand.
neighbors going to see where the panels would then be on the new drawings?
So a couple of quick things. So one, the notices sent to surrounding property owners do not include plans. They only include a description of the variance request, the description of the property, and indication of the time, date, place of the hearing. So the plans are not sent to the owners. So there wouldn't be a change to that. I would suggest we do have two people left in the audience. Even if we're going to table it, since public hearing notices were done, I would suggest that we still move forward with a public hearing tonight.
So-
You can still table it, and then if the board so desires, one way to handle it would be to table this to a date specific, which I've had other communities do, in which case they do not typically redo the public hearing notices. Conversely, if the board wants staff to redo the public hearing notices and/or the township attorney advises us to do so, then they can certainly do so. We're not trying to hide anything.
Yeah, no.
So.
The proposed or supposed change that we would get, would it change who we've sent out?
No.
So the people have already been notified. Okay.
They've been notified for a drawing that's. I mean.
But they didn't get the drawing.
Oh,
They didn't get the drawing.
Mr. Chair,
That's not what I mean. If you orient those solar panels along Riverview Court, and they're 9 foot high, those neighbors to the south are going to see those solar panels. They're going to see them.
well, and again, one of the requirements of the ordinance is they can't be visible from off-site.
Right.
going to have to be tucked in behind the existing vegetation, or new screening is going to have to be provided that will prevent them from being visible, regardless of where they go.
The idea for that was just to put arborvitaes on either side, not to encroach where the sun's going to come into the panels, but to hide it from the view of the neighbors. So that they'll see arborvitaes, they won't see the panels.
I have a question. First of all, from your aerial view, it looks like a lot of trees on your property. Are you planning on removing trees?
Well, no, because this area here, that's why I want to ask you too, how old these actual photos are. Because there's a lot of dead brush and shrubs over here. I mean, these trees are actually falling down over here on the county property. So I don't believe it's that full from an aerial
If
view.
anybody has gone by this property, and I did go out and look at it, yeah, it's not, that's why, looking at this, I go, oh, I didn't realize it was that full with the trees, because it
I believe this is an older
looks
photo.
open. In fact, it pretty much looks open for that aisleway past from your house.
Mhm.
Going down, it looks like it's pretty open, and here, obviously, it doesn't. Mm-hmm.
But so you're saying you're not going to remove any trees?
No more than we would have to, but see, down this area here, though, if we had an updated aerial view, there's just not this much coverage here in this particular area. There's like old like raspberry bushes or something over there I have to take down.
Can't put it there. Can't put them there.
Yeah, as long as it's behind the home, I can. That's where it would be.
What I'm asking is, you would have to remove trees.
No, not in that particular area. If nothing to be,
If it's behind your home, directly behind your home?
yeah, because it's more of an open area right here. I don't know if you can see this right here.
Okay.
That's grass. That's not trees.
You know, I walked that back property, and it's got a big ravine there. There's a steep slope going back there. I mean, it's quite the backyard, and I was trying to picture in my mind how you put solar panels with, I mean, especially now that you're going to align them along the east-west line there, and you know, it looked like the terrain was kind of a problem itself.
In this area here, right here is where you're talking about that steep decline.
Yeah, right behind. Yeah.
Okay, down in here, does not.
Because you got to stay within the parameters of that building.
Correct.
Moving it back farther.
Basically, that's what you're doing, moving it back and putting them side by side rather than a.
Correct. Correct.
We don't want to address the appeal right now because we don't have accurate drawings. We can entertain tabling it.
Before we table it,
Let's
open for public.
Yeah, we want the.
You have the public. Is there anybody from the public that wants to speak?
You have to come up. You have to come up and introduce yourself. And
West Pfeiffer 23477 West River Road. I'm the neighbor to the north. If this is being tabled, then I'll reserve my comments until we hear the actual proposal, etc.
Good to share your thoughts, because
Sure, I can share my thoughts.
us won't be here next time, so
Sure.
it's good to get in the minutes.
9.5 feet tall. How are you going to provide a screen for that? It's pretty hard to get arborvitaes that tall. As far as his new location and stuff, if you want, I'll address that now. The tree line that you're seeing along the grass between Riverview Court and that tree line, the bulk of those tree lines are along there is Wayne County property. And I do have, if you want, I can put it on the overhead, I have a aerial photo of the summer of 2018. I guess that's good. You can see the construction equipment from the road work on West River Road, etc. Silk fences are all along the river edge. You can see pipes and stuff from the staging area along Riverview Court. And you can see the tree line of Riverview Court. To put solar panels 9.5 feet tall, even in that location, for the people on Riverview Court, that would be coming right through their windows. There's no way to block it with arborvitaes 10 feet or higher to block the view from those neighbors and still have sun hit your panels. I mean, that's a situation that just doesn't work. So that's it. I mean, the rest of the comments can be addressed when we hear your comments and when it's retabled, when it reopened again.
Okay, thank you.
You have, Miss, do you have anything you want to? You have to introduce yourself and
Name and address.
Gail
Speak
Pfeiffer.
into the mic.
Gail Pfeiffer, 23477.
Can't hear you.
Gail Pfeiffer, 23477 West River Road. As you can see, there's a.
you're going to have to. You're not. It doesn't allow for the. Yeah, maybe if you just put that down.
As you can see, I've sketched in the approximate property line there, and you can see to the south where those panels need south shining sun. Those trees to the south would need to be removed or trimmed drastically. Those trees provide us shelter from West River Road from the dust because it is a dirt road, plus it provides us noise shelter. So he would have to remove those trees or trim them drastically in order to have those solar panels work. He's already cut down trees that's not on his property, and so I don't want to see any more trees coming down. And that's my objection to it. And 9.5 feet tall, how do you shelter that from the neighbors? The only place that I can see that solar panels would work on this property would be on his roof. That's the only place where I see sun on this piece of property. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else that wants to address the issue? Seeing no one else, I think we can have.
I'd make a motion that we table appeal number 19-003. I was trying to think. I guess until our next scheduled meeting is what I would say. Thank you.
Say the next scheduled meeting. It's when we have another.
Our next meeting date. How's that?
Okay. So we have motion. And support. We have support. Can we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those aren't, no support, hearing none, motion carries. Appeal number 19003 is tabled. Thank you.
And is that going to give you adequate time to get what we need?
I believe so, Mark. Was that good?
I mean, it
Yes, sir,
sounds
that'll
like
give us
just a
time.
new drawing, really. So.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be more than enough time.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any comments or miscellaneous items to cover? Hearing none, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you.